Hi and welcome to this blog post, and it's all about backing up and restoring in the communication app P2Go. My name is Amanda Hartman. I'm a speech pathologist and I'm one of the consultants on the Spectronics team here. And I'm also a P2Go trainer, so I kind of know a little bit about this stuff. And it is something that comes up in a lot of training that I'm doing where people aren't really in the habit of backing up and restoring. And what we're talking about is when you get P2Go, you're going to put a lot of time into it, into personalizing it and customizing it, something we've talked about a lot. Putting your own photos in, your own words, your own messages. You want to be able to back that up so that if anything should ever happen to the app on your iPad or to the iPad itself, that you can back up to the saved version so you retain all of the information that you've put into your communication set for the person you're working with. Now, this blog post is focused on looking at P2Go version 3.0 onwards. So if you have that version of P2Go updated onto your device, which I'd encourage you to do, then this is what we'll be looking at today. So, as I said, it's really important that we back up and restore, and we're going to have three separate videos showing the ways that we back up and restore. But before we get into those three ways, and here are the three ways which we should mention, is so let's have a bit of a chat about those. The first one is Dropbox. So if you're not familiar with Dropbox, Dropbox is an in the cloud storage facility that you can use. So you can send things via your internet Wi-Fi connection straight up into the cloud, into a saving place called Dropbox. Now, if you want to use this way with P2Go, you need to have already downloaded the Dropbox app onto your iPad or your iPhone or whatever, and you have to have registered and created a free account with a username and password. So you'll need to have that on there for this way to work, to back up. So basically we're going to send our backup file straight up to Dropbox. So this is a pretty easy way. The second way to back up is using iTunes file sharing. This is where you physically get the white cord and plug it into the iPad and into your computer, and then iTunes will open up and it'll allow you to have a look at the files that are on the iPad, so you can transfer things off the iPad and transfer things back onto the iPad should you need to do that either way. And the third way we're going to look at is the Wi-Fi, and this is where if you've got an iPad and a computer and they're on the same Wi-Fi network, they can create a tricky kind of connection between each other where we can transfer stuff wirelessly from computer to device and backwards and forwards. We can do that to transfer those backup files on and off the devices. Okay, so some of the things, and a lot of this will become more clear once we close out of Keynote here and into P2Go as we're looking at it. Just note that our backup files are date and time stamped, and this is a handy way to sort of remember and look at what is your most recent backup file. Now, when we're starting to talk a backup file, it actually, so you create your user. So I'm going to show you my Amanda core user, which is my core word vocabulary that I've been developing and editing and using quite a lot in my work. And the backup file has packaged up all of my customizations within the vocabulary, all the buttons and folders that I've created, but it also sticks together all those options that I've set up in my options menus as well. So it remembers what voice I've chosen, it remembers how many columns I wanted to use, it remembers the colors that I've chosen, it remembers if I needed this particular access method. So that backup file kind of holds all that information, and because of that it can actually sometimes be quite a big file size. So when you have that backup file that's everything encapsulated all together, it has the file extension of .p2gbk, P2Go backup. It's the backup file. Just like you have a .pdf on the end of a PDF file or a doc for a Word document, this is the file extension, and you need to make sure that if you're transferring and moving things around or renaming, that you don't delete that file extension there. So we'll see that when we do it later. And along those lines, when you are transferring and playing around with the backup files, make sure you obviously save them into a place that's easy to find, but also rename them perhaps with a clearer sort of name and date, so it's easy for you to find. Yeah, I said that. That's okay. The next thing is share. Once you have that backup file all saved up, and what you've done is you've transferred it off your iPad. There's no point leaving it just on your iPad, because if something happens to that, you've lost all of your work anyway. So you need to send it off and put it onto your computer or up into Dropbox. And once you've done that, P2Go file, whilst it can't be opened or viewed on any computer or anything else, it can actually be shared with other people. So if you've done a really great page that you've done a lot of customization, then I encourage you could put it on a memory stick and share it with one of your friends or other parents or colleagues, perhaps to inspire them with some ideas of vocabulary ideas and activities that they could put on P2Go for them. The last thing is that all of the backup files are created under a user. So and we'll have a look at this in more detail as we open it up, and it'll probably again make more sense. But remember, when you're loading in a new page that you're importing it, bringing it back, restoring it onto the iPad, it will save over top of whatever's there. It's just so it's important that you might want to create a new user as you're restoring or loading in a new page set. As I said, that will make more sense once we go into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to close out now, and we'll go into P2Go. But before I do that, when I hold down my finger and go into Jiggle Mode, and this is Jiggle Mode, which means I can move and rearrange my apps on my screen. As you can see, next to P2Go, it has a grey circle with a black cross on it. If I push that, that's actually a delete button, which means it's deleting the P2Go off my iPad altogether. Now, of course, I can download P2Go again off the App Store for no extra charge because I've already owned and purchased it. That's fine. However, what we can't guarantee is that the saves and the customizations you've done will be saved as well. So if one of your students accidentally deletes the app off the iPad altogether, you may well lose stuff if you haven't saved it off. So have I mentioned enough? You just need to back up. Just do it. Now, watch these videos. You may have to do it a few times over. Watch the video a few times over. Refer to the tutorials on the Assisted Wear website, and once you've done it a few times, it will become a lot easier. Anyway, of course, in this instance, going back to deleting the app off, well, I want to say cancel, of course, first, and I'm going to click my home button to go out of the Edit Jiggle Mode, and I'm going to actually go into my settings because I do have one quick trick. Hopefully you already know about it. I'm going to my blue General tab there. So I've got all my different tabs. I click the General tab on the left-hand pane there, and I scroll down to Restrictions. This is a password protected area where you can turn things on and off to customize your iPad. So there's right down here, there's a line that says deleting apps. So I just simply turn that off, and that turns off the ability for anybody to be able to delete an app, be it on purpose or accidentally. So nobody can delete apps anymore. That's password protected, so the students shouldn't be able to get into there. So we can go back out now. Now when I hold down my finger and go to Edit Mode, that delete button, they're jiggling, I can move them around, but I can no longer delete apps. So there's your first strategy that you need to make sure you're doing to have that restrictions on so that students can't delete the apps, because it has happened to me. Students can accidentally delete apps off iPads, and you will lose stuff if you haven't backed up. So let's go into P2Go now, and here I am in my Amanda page set. I'm going to write a sentence for you. Let's see.
teddy bears.
Okay, so here's my sentence, I like teddy bears. Now, I've done a lot of customization to this. I've added vocabulary. I've got my colors set up the way that I like them. And so what I need to do is I need to take a backup of this user at the moment. And I can see in my options menu, my user, I'm in my Amanda Core user. Okay, so that's my username. All right, so you'll have your own username. So what I do to do the backup is because I'm going to show you something really fast and easy first so that you're starting to get the general idea of backing up. So we click on the cog down the bottom. This is our options menu. We can see we're in our options menu. Which part of the options menu folder we're in is listed up on the top. So it's up there, we can see. I scroll down to the bottom where I'm looking at general options and I click on backup. And you can see these are all the options I have here. So what I want to do is I want to back up right now. I don't want to lose my, and I've put the I like teddy bears sentence up there because it's going to come right back to this spot in a minute. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click back up the Amanda Core now. Now, when it does that, all the backup files take up a fair amount of space on your iPad. So because I've got lots of backup files of all the different clients and people I work with, it's just asking me whether I want to make extra space for whether I want to delete some of the older backup files first. I'm going to say no. That's only simply because I like to manage the deleting of my backup files myself. So I've just said no, and that's going to take a few minutes now. That's backing up our Pro2Go page set. Okay, it's lovely. Okay, so that's good. I've saved that. That's only saved onto my iPad. It's not anywhere else. It's just saved into the internal memory of this iPad. But this is a likely scenario. You've got a student and you've accidentally forgotten to turn your options and your edit button off. And so before you know, the next time you come to look at the device, you've had a whole lot of buttons disappear off the page. Maybe the student has tried adding some buttons for themselves. They're having a nice time there. Adding some nice buttons, having some fun. Maybe they've gone into the options menu and they've somehow found their way into colours and they've made everything pink. And so the next time you come to use Pro2Go, that doesn't look like the way that we want it to. That has been made changes that we don't want to save, that we don't want to keep. So what I do is I simply go back down into my options menu. I have to back out of where I was. Now I'm at my top level. Here's my options menu, my options folder. I'm here. I go back down to my backup file, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to restore. I'm going to restore from a backup file that's saved on my iPad. And I can see, here we go, on Wednesday the 30th of October at 1400 hours and 26 minutes. This here was the backup file that we just did 2 minutes ago. So if I click on that, what this is going to do is it's going to reopen up that I like Teddy backup file that we created just before. So it's double checking with me. Do you want to open up this backup file and open it up over top of the active user? Because if you do that, you're going to lose what's on your screen, which is fine in this instance because we had changes made to our page set that we didn't want because we'd forgotten to turn the pencil and the cog off. So let's restore, and it will take a few minutes because it's a big backup file and it likes to think about it. So talk amongst yourselves. And here we go. All right, so now we're right back to where we were. We lost all those silly changes that the student did. And of course, you're going to want to know to protect your stuff from the kids having to play with the edit and the options. You're going to want to know where to turn those buttons off. And if you don't know how to do that, then please email me. I'm sure hopefully you might know how to do that already. We didn't have time to talk about it today. All right, so all I did then is I had a backup file saved onto my iPad, and I can restore it back to a previous version if things that get lost or get changed. All right, so let's have a look at what else we have in our backup menu. I can back up all the users at once. In the instance of what I just did then, I just backed up the current user, which is what I usually do. And then I use that restore button. But let's go down and have a look, because it's not enough to just back up the backup file to your iPad, you have to save it off the iPad. So if something happens to your iPad or the app on the iPad, you've got it in an external location, just like you do on your computer. You would save it to an external hard drive. Okay, so we need to do the same thing. So that, of course, is going to be an export function. Okay, so we're going to export the backup off. And then to bring, in the instance where you need to bring a backup file back on, then you will import it back onto the iPad or onto whatever device it's required. So you could import it and restore it back onto grandma's iPad so that you could have your vocabulary there. You know, he might have an individual page set, and we can import it and restore it on the classroom iPad so that he has access to his specific vocabulary when he's at school. So those are some of the options there. And so you see, when you export on Dropbox, when you click on one of the files, the ways that you can export it is directly to Dropbox or to iTunes. So we're going to have a look at that in a second. I'll cancel it. And same with importing. You've got the option when you import it back in, you can import directly from Dropbox or using the ones that have come in from file sharing on iTunes. And then we have this way here, this connect to a computer. That's the third way that we're going to look at today. What also is important to note in here is that we may want to delete backups. Okay, and again, that just gives you the option to get rid of older backup files that are no longer relevant. Okay, so I can delete previous backup files that are on there to save up space on my iPad, and I should do that routinely so that I have, so that I keep the space free on my iPad. Okay, so let's have a go at backing up and restoring.
iTunes file sharing.
All right, now we're going to look at the second way that we can back up, and that's through iTunes file sharing. So what we do is right here, just like we did before, we can see that I'm in this Amanda core word vocabulary set here. Now let's just, because we can, let's just put a word into the message window.
This is fun.
This is so much fun, this backing up and restoring. So this is the backup file that we know that we've got that's got this is fun in the message window. Because remember, it sends every button, every folder, what's in the message window, all the settings in your options are all packaged into that backup file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my options menu down in my lower cog, and I'm going to go back into the backup folder. And I'm looking here, and what I want to do is, again, I want to back up the Amanda core right now. Okay, remember again, because I have lots of backup files, it's reminding me that it wants to make extra space by deleting old backups. I'm going to say no, because I really like to manage deleting my own backup files using the delete backups option. So it's backed it up, and I know that it's sitting there, but all it is sitting on my iPad. What I want to do is I want to export it off my iPad and onto my computer, so that I have that backup file saved somewhere else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the button Export Backup Files, and we've already looked at, you might have seen the way to use Dropbox, but anyway, what we're going to do, here we go. Because we have time and date stamps on things, as I mentioned at the beginning, I can see that my Amanda core vocabulary was backed up. The most recent is at the bottom on Wednesday the 30th of October at 1400 hours and 57 minutes. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to click that, and this time I want to say, can you please export that file to iTunes so that it's, converted so it's ready for iTunes to get it. So I click on that, and it's doing that, and it's telling me, yep, that was successful. We've exported it to iTunes. The only way that we will see that is if we actually open iTunes though. So what I'm doing now is I am physically plugging in my iPad from my iPad using the white cord into the USB port of my computer. And of course, when I do that, we can then go and have a look at iTunes, and you can see that it's starting to pick up my iPad. I can click on that now, Okay, so you can see we're in iTunes now, and it's picked up my iPad here. We've got those number of tabs. Some things that you might want to do is make sure that if you go into your, I went into iTunes preferences and I'm looking at the general preferences, and then I click on the button that says devices. Just make sure that maybe you might want to tick to say prevent it from syncing automatically, so it doesn't sync automatically when you plug it in. It means if you plug in somebody else's iPad into your computer, that it won't automatically try and sync to your account. It just means you can transfer files off it easier. Anyway, so if you want more information about that, then again, email me if that wasn't clear. So across the top here, we have the tabs of all the different things that we have on our iPad. Yes, you can see that I have a really long green bar of far too many apps on my iPad. Oh well, but what I want to do is I want to click this apps tab up the top here. I click on that, and when I do, I can see the apps that are loaded onto my iPad. Okay, but what I want to do is I want to scroll down to the bottom to this section called file sharing, and when I look at file sharing, there's a whole lot of apps that allow files to be transferred on and off the device. So I'm just scrolling down the left hand pan there until I find P2Go. Okay, so what we can actually see here are all the P2Go backup document files that are all on the iPad ready to be copied off. So there's a whole lot of different ones. So I've got to kind of read the date and time stamps. I've found the one that was done today at 2:57, and that matches what we just did. And you can kind of read it in that long numerical thing there. That is the date and the time. It's a little bit hard to read, and of course it has that .p2gbk file extension on the end of it. So once I've found the file that I want to save, I just can scroll down a little bit, and when it's blue highlighted, I can now click this Save To button. So I click Save To, and then I just want to just go and find a really obvious place in my backup file. So here's a nice clean folder for P2Go backup files. I'm going to save it to there. So what that's done now is it's copied it off my iPad and onto my computer, and I can go and have a look. There it is. There's the folder there. It has this long Amanda Core kind of convoluted long backup file name. So I might actually click on it, remembering to keep the file extension, and call it Amanda Core October 2013. And you might even put the date on it as well, so that you know exactly which backup file you have there. So now I have that Amanda Core backup file there saved onto my computer. So once I'm happy with that, I can now, of course, eject my current iPad that I'm working on. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to put that vocabulary set, that Amanda Core vocabulary set, I want to put that onto my other iPad. So what I'm doing now is I'm turning on, and I'm just about to, I've got my white cord, and I'm now plugging in my other iPad. So let's do that, because I want to now restore that backup file using file sharing. Okay, so I've plugged it in. I've plugged in my new iPad, and we can see it's popped up here in iTunes. So it's got my other iPad. Now, okay, obviously I have to update software, so I'll just cancel that for now. Okay, so again, we're looking at all the information about my iPad, about my other iPad. So I go into the apps tab. We can see the apps that are loaded on. But what we want to do is we want to again scroll down to the bottom and look at that file sharing section. So we're doing things in reverse this time. Okay, so I've clicked on the P2Go tab on the left-hand side in the apps, and now we can see what P2Go documents we have currently on the iPad. So again, I could copy and paste some of those. I could click and save some of those out of here and into and onto my computer if I wanted to. But what I actually want to do is I want to put my Amanda Core vocabulary back onto this iPad. And to do that, I have this very nice little add button. So I simply click the add button. I navigate to the easily locatable folder, my P2Go backup file that's taken me straight there actually. And I click on that Amanda Core, the 30th of October that we just copied off my first iPad. and saved across onto here, and then I just click the add button, and you can see it's saying copying it across. So what it's doing at the moment is it's copying that backup file from my computer and it's transferred it over onto my other iPad. Now let's open up my other iPad and see what that looks like. Okay, so now we're looking at my other iPad, and I'm going to open up P2 Go. This is the iPad that I just copied that Amanda Core page set to. So what I've got, oh, someone's been playing bubbles here, is I'm currently looking at an older page set with some games on it that I sometimes use. But what I want to do is I want to put on that new core word vocabulary. But as you can see, if I did it right now, if I loaded it, restored it right now, it would load over top of this and then I would lose this, which wouldn't make much sense. My kids have just got home from school. Apologies for the noise. So I'm going to add a new user and we'll call it Amanda Core. Okay, and I might just set it up as a blank vocabulary because remember I'm going to restore that backup file over top of it anyway. So it's creating that user. You can hear my children joyfully arriving home. Okay, so it's taking its time to do that. Okay, so now I've got a blank page ready for me to restore, but before I can do that, I have to import it. So I'm in my cogs, I've gone into my options, I'm back in P2 Go now, because it wasn't enough to just copy it onto the iPad and P2 instantly recognize it. I now need to let P2 Go recognize it. So I go into the backup, and this time what I'm doing, of course, is I'm importing a backup. So remember before we exported it off and copied it out into iTunes? Well, now we're importing it back on because we've got a different iPad here now and we want to have it the same page set available on both devices. So when I go into import backups, remember I had the option to do it via Dropbox, which I'm not doing. These are the files that have been placed on our list that are ready to be used right away within P2 Go. So I'm going to click on that there and it's asking me, do I want to import it from iTunes? And I say, yes, please import it. I don't need to be plugged into the computer anymore to be doing this, by the way. I can have unplugged my computer to have done that. Okay, so when I clicked on the Amanda Core backup file, as it imported, I then got this message. So basically I can add it to my list of backup files, or I can, if I'm ready to, restore it right now, which of course I am ready to restore it right now. So I'll click on it and it doubly checks with me, do you want to restore it? Because remember it's going to restore it over top of the active user. Fortunately we've created a brand new blank user, so it's a really safe place for us to restore it on top of. Now it's going to take a little while for this just to restore and load back onto the iPad. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, and there we go. It's restored and it's loaded. And it says, this is fun.
This is fun.
Okay, so that was the message that we put onto the first iPad when we first backed up. And so what we've done is we've exported it into iTunes. You saw me do the process of transferring the files within iTunes and onto a different device, and now I've restored it onto this one. And now I've got all my customizations exactly the same on both iPads, which is really, really important that I have the same vocabulary available to me at home and at school and at grandma's. And yeah, so hopefully that might be one way that you can use to back up your P2 Go files today. Okay, well, thank you for watching this short video on backing up and restoring. I do have a couple of messages for you.
Do it.
Do it. Time.
Today. Do it today.
Go on, do it today. Back up today before you forget how to do it. Watch this video again so that you remind yourself how to do it. You can watch it whenever you need to. So my name's Amanda Hartman. Here's my email address. Please do email me if you have any further questions. And please make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and follow our blog. And if you are interested in more webinars and videos around Proloquo Go, there's plenty of online content on our Spectronics online subscription service, so you might want to check that out. Thanks for stopping by today. Bye.